Good evening, good people. Welcome, welcome, welcome to tonight's mass call where we're making some demands. We're saying no to warfare, yes to healthcare. Y'all, we've got thousands of people registered. 700 of y'all have been hanging out waiting for us to get started. And we're growing by the second. This is your opportunity to get comfortable, take your shoes off, get your water or your tea, whatever, and come get grounded with us. We're going to be starting in just a couple minutes. This is also a perfect opportunity for you to tell your friends, your neighbors, your colleagues, your comrades to come on and get in here with us tonight. We've got leaders that you can trust that are going to help us make meaning of this moment and give us our concrete calls to action tonight. Things that you can sign up for, things that you can commit to, things that you can start doing as soon as this day. Thank you for not regarding it robbery to spend your busy evening with us tonight. I'm going to be your host for the evening, Ashley Woodard Henderson. It is an honor and a privilege to be back with you all tonight. Let's just take a moment to remember why we are gathering yet again in the sacred virtual space that we create together. While threatening healthcare of 16 million people in the United States, Trump has stoked the flames of yet another costly war in the Middle East. His bombs and threats put millions more people at incredible risk, including thousands of service members in the region. Trump broke his campaign promises. He ran 3 times saying that he wouldn't do this very thing and made a bet that war would be a political win for him. But as we've shown him before, we're going to show him again. He is absolutely wrong. We want health care, not warfare. The vast majority of people in this country have made it clear. We need health care, not warfare. Over the past few days, the anti-war majority came out in full force with every protest, with every statement, with every petition signature, with every call to Congress, and so many more interventions that people, everyday people like you have made, and some. We reminded this White House that we have power. We reminded ourselves that we have agency, we have power. We are not going anywhere. Ceasefires save lives, my friends, and any action that stops the violence is a step that we've made in the right direction. While we're going to pay attention and watch closely, praying that this ceasefire holds, knowing that we cannot trust it to hold without our people power pressure, we remain vigilant and ready to push back on any and every attempt by this administration to drag us into war. Our pressure is working, friends. Our pressure is working, and we are only getting started. Together, we're going to continue to say hands off the social safety net and remind the world that there are no kings in this country and show up to defend our values and our neighbors. If that's why you came to the call tonight, can you just tell me what's up? I see folks are introducing themselves. They're saying their orgs and their communities that they're calling in from. If you are here because you want healthcare and not warfare, can you say, I'm here for healthcare and not warfare in the comments? I see we're international, y'all. There's people from all over the world here with us tonight. Some friends from the UK have joined us. I see Indivisible, Tennessee. Shout out to the volunteer state. My home state is here. Folks from Cali to New Orleans. We got folks from Kentucky and Virginia, from Minnesota, from Texas. California is in the building. New York is here. And y'all, we all watching with bated breath to see what y'all got going on in the election there. So shout out to our friends from New York. We're sending you a lot of love and a lot of solidarity. Washington State is in the building. What up, though, to the Detroit fam and all of our other folks in Michigan, y'all. We are going to keep it moving, but there are already over 1,000 people on this call and counting. Make sure that you spread the word and let folks know that tonight this is the place to be. With no further ado, I want to thank you again for being here and start to bring in our incredible speakers. Y'all, there's a lot to learn from these great folks who have been doing work around these intersections for years and years and years. And there's some concrete calls to action that I'm going to be reminding you of. If you're concerned about getting the links in the chat, don't sweat it. We've got incredible moderators in the chat that are going to drop the links. We also are going to make sure that you get the links after this call. So if the chat is moving too fast and you miss it, don't worry. you, and we're going to make sure to send this info to you at the end of the call. Our first speaker is Sarah Hadutsi. She is the incredible executive director of Win Without War. You all know her, and you know the Win Without War Education Fund's work. It's a diverse network of activists and organizations across the country that are working for a more peaceful and progressive United States foreign policy. Sarah, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me, and thank you so much to everyone who is here tonight. And I want to start off this call and my remarks by really acknowledging and sending love to everyone who has a personal connection to this issue like I do. I have family in Iran, and I can't begin to tell you how terrifying the last few days have been. Watching the President of the United States call for evacuations of Tehran and knowing that I had family and friends who couldn't get out because they were too old or too sick to be able to leave, knowing that the Israeli government had already started targeting oil and gas infrastructure so that even if people were leaving, they didn't have enough gas in their cars to be able to get out. And alongside that, I have friends in Israel who are running from their houses to bomb shelters in that state of true fear as well. And of course, there have been so many service members and their families worried about them being put in direct risk, as well as that heartbreak of them facing potential new deployments. And as all of this has been going on, the crisis in Gaza and the West Bank has only escalated, and people are still dealing with those daily humiliation, with continued violence, and a shortage of basic necessities. Now, my first ask for all of you is when we talk about these issues, it is incredibly easy to erase the human impact of what is happening. We shouldn't do that. The first step of change here is to acknowledge that all these decisions impact real people's lives, and we should not erase those sleepless nights. We should not erase the chill in the bones that comes from unanswered phone calls to your family when you don't know if they're safe. And here's the thing, it did not have to be this way. We had a diplomatic agreement that President Obama put in place that worked. It contained Iran's nuclear program. And in his first term, Donald Trump ripped it up. And this week, he tried to bomb his way out of a crisis of his own making. And it didn't work. What we now have is Iran's nuclear program has gone underground. People literally cannot find the uranium that they had. And it is going to be much harder to ever get access and to inspectors being able to see what is happening in those sites. Let me put this as clearly as I can. Donald Trump's reckless and illegal strikes over the weekend has made us less safe. Now, again, the last few days have been terrifying, but they've also been helpful. Why? Because the anti-war majority did show up. There have been so many of you that have made phone calls, that have signed petitions, that have called to Congress. And we have reminded this White House that we have power. We have let them know that they can deploy the Marines into LA to try and intimidate us, that they can drive tanks down Pennsylvania Avenue, but we are not intimidated and we are not going anywhere. And to so many of you who, like me, marched against the Iraq War, I also want you all to know that the reason why so many people in Congress know that the majority of Americans do not want another endless war is because of the legacy of those protests and the work that has been done generation after generation in this country against this kind of senseless violence. Now, again, ceasefires do save lives. Any action that de-escalates violence is critical and is a step in the right direction. I am cautiously optimistic about that ceasefire, and we need to remain vigilant. We need to ensure that there are checks and balances in place so that Donald Trump cannot do something like this again, and that we can push back at any attempts for this administration to drag us into a new war, but also make sure that they don't have any more excuses to keep up with the authoritarian power grab that we're seeing, to continue targeting communities and ripping families apart. We need to keep pushing back on that day after day and protecting our democracy. And with that, I want to say that I am so grateful to the members of Congress who have shown up for this fight and who have shown that they are pledging allegiance to a constitution, to our constitution, instead of a wannabe king. And I am so proud tonight to introduce Senator Tim Kaine, who has put forward a resolution to hold the Trump administration accountable for these reckless actions and ensure that he won't be able to put so many people in harm's way the way he has over the last few days. Thank you so much.
Sarah, thank you. And give me a thumbs up, Sarah, if you can hear me. Okay, great. I'm so glad to be on with MoveOn and Indivisible. I know Ro Khanna will follow me. This is so important. You know, I'm not on a lot of MoveOn and Indivisible calls because I'm probably seen as kind of like one of these centrist Dems that you normally aren't that wild about. But on this one, I am obsessed with the very notion that the United States should not be at war without a vote of Congress. I'm absolutely obsessed with it. I came to the Senate in 2013 from a very pro-military state, Virginia, with a kid in the Marine Corps. And I tell people when I came into the Senate, I had 100 passions, 100 interests, 10 passions, and one obsession. And the obsession was we shouldn't let a president start a war without Congress. And if Congress is going to start a war, we ought to be debating it very openly and transparently in front of the American public. Obviously, the reason I had that obsession is I'd watched us get lied into a war in Afghanistan and get into a war of some necessity. I'm sorry, lied into a war in Iraq in 2003, but also enter a war of some necessity in Afghanistan. But then instead of a targeted strategy to go after the folks who attacked us on 9/11, we turned it into this global war on terror that cost us life, cost us treasure, and also cost us massively in. So in Virginia now, I have all these military families, including my own, who are very, very nervous about what President Trump has done. We know this. President Trump acted with a bombing campaign on Saturday that was completely unnecessary. The Israelis had said the day before they had set the Iranian nuclear program back at least 2 or 3 years. We know the president has altered his rationale. Was it about the nuclear program or was it about regime change? When the U.S. is involved in regime change in this region or anywhere, we always get it wrong. That is not a legitimate goal for American foreign policy. There's much to say, but last Monday, a week ago yesterday, I filed the War Powers Resolution in the Senate to say that we shouldn't be at war with Iran without a vote of Congress. Too many members of Congress, especially the tough talking Iran hawks on the Republican side, they're okay with war, but by God, they're too chicken to vote for it. And they don't want to vote for it because their constituents would say to them, what in the hell are you thinking? Have we not learned anything from 20 years of unproductive wars in the Middle East? So my privilege resolution, and then Ro Khanna and Thomas Massie in the House have followed on the House side. My resolution will technically ripen for a vote on Friday, but there is some chance we'll vote for it Thursday at the end of the day or Friday morning before we get into the reconciliation bill. And what I'm saying, my Democratic colleagues, with the possible exception of John Fetterman, who seems opposed to my resolution, the Democratic colleagues will be supportive. Chuck Schumer's been great in terms of getting me a vote and getting this queued up. What we need is help with Republicans. And I am making this case to Republicans and anything you can do to reach out to Republican Senate offices. I will have Republican votes, but I need 4 or 5 to prevail. I will have plural Republican votes, but I still need more. So if you could reach out, here is the message I'm saying to them. The framers of the Constitution decided that a decision about sending our sons and daughters into war was just too big a decision for one person. I mean, a president that we completely agree with, that's in our party, whose judgment is sound, it's still too big for one person. And now we get to a president who's unstable, who is moody, who wakes up every day with a different vibe, who's flattered him, etc. We do not want to vest a decision of this magnitude in the whim, vibe, or mood of a single person. Just watch how erratic it's been in the last few days. Is this a war to knock out a nuclear program or for regime change? Are we interested in diplomacy, or do we want to tear up diplomatic deals and end a campaign by war? Was Iran on the verge of getting a nuclear weapon, or were they far away from getting a nuclear weapon? Have we completely obliterated and destroyed their capacity, or just set it back a matter of weeks or months? Do we have a real ceasefire, or is it not a ceasefire? There are so many challenging questions that need to be answered in full view of the American public. A president like Donald Trump, who's so unstable, or frankly, any president who is human and mortal, cannot bear the burden of these decisions alone. And that's why the framers said we shouldn't be at war without a vote of Congress. We'll have this vote late Thursday or early Friday. Anything y'all can do to reach out to Republican offices and say, whatever you feel about Iran and about the circumstances under which a U.S. war with Iran might be advisable, it should not happen without Congress. If whatever you feel, you should be willing to put your name on the line and cast a vote and be held accountable by your constituents, by the military families in your districts and states. So that's what I hope you might do. It's Senate Joint Resolution 59 coming up in the next couple of days. Anything you can do to be helpful would be great. I happen to think my vote would be another U.S. war in the Middle East after the last 20 years would be a disaster and would demonstrate we haven't learned anything. But let's at least make sure that Congress puts their name on the line on this. Thanks so much for having me on tonight. And I'm happy that Ro is on too, because he's been such a good champion of this on the House side.
Senator Kaine, we're so grateful that you didn't regard it robbery to be here with us. We're going to talk a little bit more about the War Powers Resolution, but since you all can see that the incredible Congressman Ro Khanna is here with us, the representative of California's 17th Congressional District, has been leading the War Powers Resolution in the House. So, Congressman Khanna, we will toss it to you next.
Well, first of all, let me just thank Senator Kaine for really being the first leader in introducing the War Powers Resolution. And he has such credibility on foreign policy. I've admired him since he first was in the Senate. He should have been our vice president, would have been a different world. And he has shown enormous guts and judgment, and his leading on this really helps build broad credibility in the Democratic Party. So I'm an admirer, and I think he deserves a lot of courage for what he did. I also want to just very briefly, but importantly, thank Working Families Partnership, MoveOn, Indivisible, Win Without War, Common Defense, Reverend Barber and the Poor People's Campaign, and all the other progressive activists and anti-war movement. You know, they see me on TV now. I was at some event, people clap, but that's not what's changing things. What's changing things is all of you. You are building and showing that we have an anti-war movement in this country. And you are showing that this country is sick of people campaigning, saying that they're not going to get into these wars in the Middle East. And then they get surrounded by these neocons and foreign policy beltway, and they start to advocate for strikes and wars. I'll just be honest with you. I don't understand how they put Brett McGurk on television for like an hour. I mean, they're putting people on television who cheerlead us into Iraq, who opposed Obama in the JCPOA. And I'm tired of I love the substantive argument, the constitutional argument, but we need to make the substantive argument. We need to make the argument that the people who cheerlead us into Iraq were wrong. The people who opposed the JCPOA were wrong. The Libya strikes were wrong. The war in Yemen was wrong. The Democratic Party needs to become the anti-war party again, the anti-war of choice party. We need to win back Americans to say, look, we've spent too much of our money on a defense budget that is over $1 trillion. We're spending now billions of dollars bombing Iran and putting more troops into the Middle East. That is money that could be going for childcare here, for health care here, for jobs here. That will win back a majority of Americans in this country. There are people who voted for Donald Trump, who voted for him because they were sick of these overseas wars and they were sick of our jobs going offshore to corporations. And if the Democratic Party can be the party of peace abroad and jobs at home, then we can start to win back the trust of this country. And so my hope to all of you is, yes, let's get a vote on the War Powers Resolution. Let's talk to as many people as we can. But let's start to have a Democratic Party that clearly stands for things. And let's not be afraid. Let's not engage in a politics of insult or personal destruction. But let's not be afraid to call out people, whether they're in our party or the status quo, who have just been wrong about foreign policy and are undermining our credibility with the American people. I would like us to be a clear party that's against these wars. I would like us to be a clear party that's for the working class, anti-war, pro-working class, peace abroad, jobs at home. We don't need millions of dollars of studies to tell us how to win back the country. That will do it. I fundamentally believe that. And all of you are going to do it, are going to help build the party that we need. So I'm on this call largely just to thank you for your moral clarity, to encourage you to continue to speak out, and to help really build the party that inspired me, the party of Gene McCarthy and Bobby Kennedy and Barack. That's the party, and Bernie Sanders. That's the party that we need to build.
Thank you so much for being with us. We know that it is a busy day, so thank you, y'all. We're going to drop some links in the chat to be able to share, not only with you to click on tonight and make your commitments, make your voices heard around the War Powers Resolution, but also so that you can be sharing it far and wide so that we can make sure that Trump isn't unilaterally sending us to war. So I need you to use it. I need you to check the chat. I need you to grab those links. I also want to lift up what Senator Kaine said, because I feel like often on our mass calls, we hear from folks in red states that are like, yeah, like, I don't really know if it's important if I call my Republican congressperson. Well, you heard it here tonight. It absolutely does matter. We need you to also support these calls to actions this evening. We'll have 3 of them throughout the call. The first is going to be a petition to sign with our comrades from Win Without War. You will go to that link and you will sign to make sure that you have said to your congressperson that they have to pass the War Powers Resolution to stop a U.S.-Iran war. We will not be participating. We will not be supporting, and we will shut it down before we let this war happen. So you came tonight for a call to action. That is a primary one. The second is going to be about a phone bank. You'll hear more about that shortly. And the third is going to be a third opportunity to call to express that you don't want a war. So we're going to be dropping links throughout the evening in the chat. If you miss them, don't stress it. We're going to make sure that you get access to them after the call. Y'all, I get to bring up our next leader. It's our brother, our comrade, the political director of Common Defense. Naveed Shah is an Iraq war veteran, and he is leading Common Defense, a grassroots organization that mobilizes veterans across the United States to achieve an inclusive democracy that works for all of us and against the forever wars that make our communities unsafe. Naveed, I'll toss it to you next.
Thank you so much for that amazing introduction. Good. Hey, everybody. My name is Naveed Shah. I'm the political director of Common Defense, a grassroots veterans organization. And today we're here to demand a government that takes care of its people, especially our veterans, and chooses diplomacy over destruction. As an Iraq war veteran, I know the cost of war. The cost of war is not just in dollars, but it's in lives, it's in families, it's in futures. I've seen firsthand what happens when our leaders rush into conflicts without a plan, leaving our troops to bear the burden. And we've seen what happens when those same troops come home, often carrying invisible scars, if not visible injuries, only to find a system that's supposed to support them, like the VA, under-resourced and understaffed. Now, this administration wants to cut 83,000 jobs from the Department of Veterans Affairs. That's 15% of their workforce. Many of them are veterans and military family members themselves. And these cuts threaten the care that millions of veterans rely on, and they're part of a broader attack on the social safety net that supports millions of Americans. They always want to talk about support the troops. They had a big parade here in DC claiming it was for the troops. But is cutting veterans' health care supporting the troops? At the same time, Trump is stoking the flames of potentially another costly war in the Middle East. The strikes on Iran, ordered without proper congressional notification, let alone approval, were not only wrong but ineffective. They set Iran's capabilities back by mere months, risking the lives of thousands of service members stationed in the region and millions of civilians caught in the crossfire. This reckless escalation wasn't about strategy, it was a political gamble. Trump made a bet with the lives of our service members who are currently stationed in the Middle East, hoping it would win him accolades, and how wrong he was. Over the past few days, the anti-war majority has risen in full force, and I've been so proud to see it. Many of you have done that, and I really appreciate it. From protests in the streets to petition signatures, from calls flooding members of Congress and rallies around the country, we're reminding this White House that the power lies with us, the people, and we're not going anywhere. While we are cautiously optimistic for the ceasefire, we're also very weary because, let's face it, this guy is unpredictable. Who knows what he's going to tweet next? And we're prepared to challenge any further efforts to pull us into another forever war. Which brings me to why I'm here today, alongside these other amazing leaders. We are fighting for legislation so that Congress and the people they represent can reclaim its war powers authority. The war powers resolutions are about restoring checks and balances, ensuring that no president, Republican or Democrat, can act like a king and plunge us into a conflict without the consent of Congress, the people that represent all of us. This escalation without provocation, to me, really reminded me of the Iraq War's moral failures. The difference is that back then, at least the Bush administration had the wherewithal to make a case. We know that WMD Iraq was a lie. I've been there. We didn't find any WMDs, by the way. But at least they tried. In this case, there was no case made, nothing to the public, not even to Congress, to say that here's why we're doing this. Trump's overreach, bypassing Congress to order these strikes, didn't make us safer. It made us more vulnerable. It put our troops, our allies, and our country at greater risk. And meanwhile, let's not forget the dangers of what this administration is doing right here at home, deploying American troops against peaceful protesters, targeting nonviolent immigrants with ICE raids, and even those who are just showing up for their hearings. These actions politicize our military and make a mockery of justice and the rule of law. As a veteran, I know the military exists to protect our nation, not to serve as a political tool. When I served in Iraq, I saw the consequences of decisions made without accountability, decisions that left our troops under-equipped, under-supported, and sent into conflicts with no clear end. But now, the American people are speaking loud and clear. We need healthcare, not warfare. And when we come home, too many of us found a VA that was stretched thin, struggling to provide the care we earned. And now this proposed 15% cut to the VA would make that struggle even harder, denying veterans access to mental health services, medical care, and the support we were promised. This isn't just a policy failure to me, it's a betrayal of those who I served with. And it's not just veterans who are under attack. Congress is preparing to vote on a budget resolution that would slash nearly $1 trillion from programs like Medicaid, food assistance, and education, lifelines that millions of Americans, including veterans and military families, depend on. These cuts would gut the social safety net to fund tax giveaways for the ultra-wealthy and big corporations. This is a moral failure and a direct attack on the values that we fought for. We fought for a nation that takes care of its people, not one that prioritizes profit over its people. And that's why we need diplomacy, not bombs. The strikes in Iran didn't make us safer. They escalated tensions and brought us to the brink of another forever war. Diplomacy, backed by a strong anti-war movement, is really the only path to lasting security. It's why Common Defense is fighting alongside organizations like MoveOn, Working Families, Indivisible, and Public Citizen to stop these cuts and protect our future. So here's the call to action, and we need you to join us. Right now, Congress is deciding whether to advance a budget that would devastate Medicaid and other vital programs. So we're organizing a national phone bank to reach more people and urge them to join us to help stop these cuts. Sign up for that phone bank right now. Make your voice heard. Help us call your senators, demand they vote no on any budget that sacrifices our veterans, our families, and our communities for the sake of corporate greed. As Americans, we know our power. We've shown it in the streets, in the calls to Congress, and the petitions we've signed. Our pressure is working, and we're only getting started. Together, we'll continue to say, hands off our social safety net, and there are no kings in America. We, the people, will always show up to defend our values, peace, justice, and care for all those who call this country home. Thank you for standing with us.
Naveed, you're getting so much love in the YouTube chat. Thank you so much for being here with us tonight. And thank you for coming and giving us a direct call to action that now is our time, that we need to build a movement strong enough that is inclusive of enough of us to actually see the difference made. Thank you for being here, Naveed. Y'all, the next person that I get to introduce to you is someone that you know very well. We're having tricky technological issues, so we're going to try this. If it doesn't work, we're going to keep trying until we can get him on. This person needs no introduction. He is the Reverend Bishop Dr. William J. Barber II, the co-chair of the Poor People's Campaign and National Call for Moral Revival, the president of Repairs of the Breach. And you might also know him because he is the founding director of the Center of Public Theology and Public Policy at Yale Divinity School. Our people's pastor is also a professor. Reverend Barber, can you hear us?
I can hear you well. Can you hear me?
We got you, man. Go off.
Let me thank you so much, MoveOn, for doing this tonight, and to all of the partners that are here. And I want to come on as primarily the president of Repairs of the Breach, and also that we are now doing Moral Mondays in the Capitol. June 30th, we'll have another one. We started with 100 people, over 2,000 were there the last time and growing. Our brothers and sisters with Indivisible joined us, Ezra and others have come in, many partners, about 30 different partners now, and denominational leaders, clergy coming in full vestment with impact to people. And this is the reason. We are in a crisis of civilization. We have to say healthcare, not warfare. We have to challenge what is going on and how ugly it is. And whatever mythology these folk are living with, this wannabe king mythology, remembering the as illegal, unconstitutional act of war. We have to have people that will stand up and call for it to be challenged in legislation. We have to be in the streets and challenge it, in the pulpits and challenge it, in the synagogues, the mosques, and then we have to turn a congregation. We have to turn the street into a place of moral outrage. That is why clergy are coming on Monday with full vestments and with the impact that people around this country. There is a war we should be involved in, and that is the war against poverty and the war against the denial of health care, but not with violence, with nonviolence, with grace, with love, with truth, with our bodies, with our conspicuous presence. Because 51,000 people will die the first year that this new budget, if it is passed as it is, 51,000 people on top of the 800 people that already die every day from poverty, and over 250,000. And that's just in the first year. This budget is big, deadly, destructive, and ugly. It is not beautiful in any way. But what we have here is a small man, Trump, around small people whose policies are failing at home. And so he's trying to use war and bombs in Iran to push away from his failure at home and attempt to use those bombs, if you will, so that the tail of bombs can wag the dog, if you will. He is an authoritarian, and a wannabe king is most dangerous when they are failing at home and he's not getting the kind of popular response that he wants, and his own people are turning against them. That's when they're extraordinarily dangerous, because they will do anything to feed their narcissism. And that is also when the people must be conspicuous in our standing up. Yes, we must make calls, and yes, we must make emails, and yes, I endorse all of that. And we must put our bodies out front and on the line, those impacted. In fact, I heard my friend just say, when you talk about, for instance, this attempt to pass a budget that will throw 16 million people off of Medicaid and cause people's death, many of those people are veterans. They did not fight for their own tax dollars to be used to give $2.5 trillion of cuts to the greedy, and to cut health care and Medicare and Medicaid and Social Security, do nothing for living wages, do nothing to fully fund public education, grant 10,000 more ICE agents with masks, and raise our military budget to over $1 trillion, when in fact, as the budget is right now, if you were to cut our military budget in half, we would still have more money in that budget than Iran, Iraq, North Korea, and China and Russia combined. At some place, and for me as a Christian, and I was listening to Cornel West the other night, I put the cross above the flag and asked the question, not how can we just not bomb in, but how can we call for a place of peace and no war and no more bombs? We brag about being able to have enough bombs to blow up the world 100 times. Well, and one time is enough. And we should be about the issue of peacemaking and not war making. And we should fight for the heart and soul of the people and put in front of the people the clean water of being anti-war and pro-diplomacy and pro-lifting up people that are hurting and getting rid. The issue we should be talking about is how to get rid of nuclear weapons, not just how to keep one country from having them or having enough to so-called deter war, which ultimately in the end, as Dr. King said, the issue is no longer between nonviolence and war, but nonviolence and non-existence. This is dangerous stuff that this president and others are engaging in, and we cannot say it's too much. We can't be apathetic. We can't say we're afraid. Kings only become kings if you bow to them. And in this season, we cannot bow to them. There are more with us than there are against us. And we can't meet violence with violence. That undermines our moral authority. And you can't fight a country that's specialized in its history in violence with violence. But we can raise the most massive nonviolent movement and moral movement that will say no to 5 things, 5 interlocking injustices that we together must say no to from our deepest constitutional and our deepest religious moral values. And those are systemic racism, whether it's against Black people or Latino people or indigenous people or people from other nations, African nations, and even the collateral damage that it does to our white brothers and sisters. Systemic poverty, ecological devastation, and the denial of health care. The war economy and the false moral narrative, and the militarization of our community. And then lastly, the false moral narrative of religious nationalism. We must say no to that. And as we say no to the war economy, we have to say no to war, because ultimately, as I close, the love of money is the root of all evil. That the money that's behind this, that somebody makes money when we blow up bombs and have to make more bombs. Somebody makes money when we engage in war.
Y'all, I think we might have lost the good bishop right as he was getting to the good climax in that benediction. But what we know for sure is, as our buddy Eureka said in the chat, it makes no sense whatsoever for so much of our taxpayer dollars to go to the Pentagon. We need healthcare, not warfare. And I couldn't agree more. Can we show some love?
As we move. Yeah, as we move, can you hear me?
We can hear you now.
As we move, let us not forget that poor and low-wage people in this country, the stones that the builders reject, is the greatest potential growth of the voting bloc and movement bloc in this country. Let us make sure in everything we say, we do not forget poor and low-wage brothers and sisters who hold this power. And many of them didn't vote in the last election because nobody talked to them. That's what was said in study after study. Well, let us be a movement that says we lift from the bottom and we bring everybody up, and that we make sure that these things like war and denying of health care, they hurt the least among us the most and the worst, and they produce death the most and the worst among them. But poor and low-wage people are not just people to be fought for. They are people to be organized with. They need to be right up at the front of our battle and they need to be the face of many of our movements. They're going to be the face on June 30th in the nation's capital. I'm inviting you all to come sign these petitions, health care rather than warfare. Move on. You keep us moving on. We are not going to bow. If you want to say anything from tonight, say this: bowing down is not an option. We will not bow to this budget. We will not bow to this war and dropping bombs. We will not bow to a wannabe king president. We will not bow to Mac Johnson. We will not bow to Hune in the Senate. We will not bow to extremists in this moment. We will not bow now. We will not bow ever. We will not bow. Bowing is not an option.
Amen to that. We will not bow down, no kings, and hands off our social services. Y'all show some love to the great Bishop, Reverend Dr. William J. Barber II. We're so glad that you were here with us tonight. Y'all know that on these mass calls, traditionally, we've always ended with a good word from a person who is not only my friend, my brother, my colleague, but my comrade in this work. I am a proud dues paying member to the Working Families Party, y'all. How many WFP people we got in the house tonight? If you're with WFP, I want you to shout out your location in the chat. We'll shout you out in a little bit. Our national party leader is about to close us out. Maurice Mitchell calling in from New York. How you doing, brother?
Oh, Ash, I'm blessed to be with you and blessed to be with everybody that's on the call. And in this occasion where we're coming together as working people to make it clear what time it is, the fact that working people reject war, but we embrace one another. This is an opportunity for solidarity with working people here in the United States and around the world, right? The past few days have felt really scary for so many people. The possibility that the United States could enter into another unnecessary and damaging war is terrifying. We know that in times of war, working people across the country are the people that are put in danger. Working people around the world. So, as you've heard tonight from other speakers, the announcement of a ceasefire is a good thing. Any action that stops the violence is a step in the right direction, but we have to remain vigilant and ready to push back on any additional attempts from the Trump administration to drag us into war. Now, we know that when we organize together and pressure our elected officials, we have the power to prevent the dangerous proposals and actions that are coming from the Trump administration. We've seen that. The incredible power that our movement has been able to manifest across this country has been on display all throughout this year and also in recent weeks. From the powerful defense against ICE in LA and in other cities across the country to the No King's Day protest a couple of weeks ago, we've been able to show the Trump administration that we will not roll over as they try to harm our communities. The response to Trump's illegal strikes in Iran and was really swift from all corners. The majority of this country is opposed to war across ideology, across region, across race. We don't want it. And you all came out in force with protests, calls to Congress, and other actions to vocalize your opposition to a war in Iran. Now, this week is a critical moment when we need everyone united to fight back against war and to fight for the healthcare and social programs we need. Now, in the midst of the war in the Middle East, the Trump administration is trying to pass massive funding cuts to critical social programs that our communities rely on. Now, they're trying to take healthcare away from more than 16 million Americans. They're trying to cut funding to food and nutrition assistance programs that so many children and families rely on. The harm that this budget reconciliation bill will cause to our communities is massive. Now, we have three actions that we hope you all will take this week. To be clear, this is an organizing call, which means we're not just here to share information. We're here to align so that we could take action. So I need everybody on this call to pay attention to the next 3 actions that we're sharing right now. Action number 1. As you heard from Senator Kaine and Congressman Khanna, it's still important that we pass the War Powers resolution that they're leading. Senator Kaine is planning to bring this resolution to the floor of the Senate. We need all of you to make a call to your senators to tell them to support the War Powers resolution. So that's number 1. We need all of you to make those calls to your senator. Action number 2, we're also collecting petitions. So we're collecting signatures to send to all members of Congress, urging them to vote in favor of this resolution. And we need you to sign that petition. So number 1, call your senator. Number 2, sign the petition. And the third action, this week is a critical time for the budget reconciliation process in the Senate. The current reconciliation bill will take away health care for more than 16 million Americans, mainly through its drastic funding cuts to the Medicaid program. We're hosting phone banks all week to drive calls into Senate offices to stop this immoral bill. So please sign up to participate in one of these phone banks to help save Medicaid. Again, I'm going to restate these actions. This is an organizing call, so your mandate, every single one of you, is to sign on to each of these actions. Number 1, call your senator immediately. And it's important that we do that so that they could pass the War Powers resolution that Senator Kaine is planning to bring to the floor of the Senate. Number 2, sign the petition. We are collecting petitions so that we could send to all the members of Congress. And number 3, sign up for one of these phone banks so that we could challenge this wrong-headed, immoral bill that is taking away millions of resources from Medicaid and other programs, stripping away this needed safety net for millions and millions of Americans. That is the mandate of this week. We need you to sign on to all 3 of those actions. And then once you do that, tell a friend and a neighbor and a family member. So this movement cannot just be informed, but could be mighty, strategic, and powerful in this critical moment where we need to take our outrage and form it into action. Thank you.
Y'all, I see WFP, Michigan and Georgia and New York and so many others in the chat. We see y'all. Shout out to the WFP fam. It's been beautiful to see people coming onto this call in a time of such great challenge, of such great contradiction, and certainly fearful and with all sorts of negative connotation emotions because this country is being pulled into a war that we don't want at the expense of our folks and in the expense of our people, our neighbors, our colleagues, y'all. I get it. We have a multi-ideological space that we've built. Some folks were really excited about some of the things that you've seen, and some folks are really challenged. So what I'm going to invite us to do is have a little grace from one another while we come together as the majority of this country saying no more war. Now, some of you also would say, well, Ashley, we don't mobilize people around just a no argument, that we've got to have something that's better than just get rid of Trump. And listen, I want to get rid of him, but I agree with you. We have to have an alternative. And what we're saying, we want the majority of us again in this country want access to Medicaid, want health care, want all of us to have access to the things that we need. Now's the time to stand up together, to rise up together like lives depend on it, because they actually do. Mo has given us concisely our 3 calls to action. And for my friends on YouTube who are saying that the links, they can't click the links in the chat, no sweat, friends. We're going to email these links out to you as well as soon as we get off this call. So be on the look in your inbox for the links, and you can then sign up again to call your senator and tell your senator no war on Iran, right? To stand up with Senator Tim Kaine, who is getting it right this time, who has introduced a war powers resolution to rein in Trump's illegal military action and block further escalation. We know that this vote is important. For my friends that, like me, live in red states, it's even more important that we call our Republican representatives and senators and tell them to get on this bill, right? The second thing that you can do is sign the Win Without War petition to tell Congress that they have to pass the war powers resolutions to stop a U.S. on Iran war. And last but certainly not least, you can join those of us in Working Families Power, in MoveOn, in Indivisible, in Community Change Action, and Public Citizen for a national phone bank to Medicaid recipients, urging them to call their senators ahead of the upcoming budget vote to stop the cuts and to save Medicaid. We're going to make sure that you've got all three of those links. My friends, we have come to the end of another call, and yet there is still so much more work to do. Be on the lookout for the email where you will get these links, these calls to action. Be sure to sign up yourself for the calls, for the petition, spread the word. We need to build a big and powerful movement to stop this war machine. I thank you for not regarding it robbery to be on the call with us tonight, and we will see you in the streets. Thank y'all for being here tonight.